Good morning. I'm Ellen McSherry, the Chief Operating Officer with the New Jersey Society of CPAs. Welcome to today's IssuesWatch edition. Joining me today is Ralph Thomas, our CEO and Executive Director to my immediate right, and Ralph's guest for today's broadcast is Brad Muniz. Brad is partner in charge of accounting and auditing with Sobel & Company, LLC, and is the new president of the NJCPA. Before we get started, I wanted to go over some housekeeping items. The IssuesWatch shows and the related 1 CPE credit for each show are offered to you as an exclusive benefit for being a member of the NJCPA. As you watch today's broadcast, you will see 3 unique attendance verification letter codes in the form of a graphic on your screen. These codes will be repeated several times throughout the broadcast. You will want to be sure to jot them down. Once the webcast is over, you will click on the Certification tab to fill out the program evaluation and enter the 3-letter codes that were displayed throughout the webcast. If the codes are supplied, you will receive your 1 credit of CPE. If you have any questions at all during any point during the broadcast, please submit them via the Questions tab. We've built in time at the end of the broadcast to answer all questions. IssuesWatch is recorded and will be available on the NJCPA YouTube channel after the broadcast. Should you run into any technical difficulties during the webcast, please click on the Help tab for the ACPEN Help Desk number. Now for today's agenda, we're going to explore human capital, both from the enterprise and the profession viewpoints. We're also going to take a look at what's going on in New Jersey from the legislative and regulatory arena, and hot topics such as the changing CPE landscape. The graying of America. It's certainly something we've all heard. We've heard this expression over and over again. We know there are 78 baby boomers who are expected to retire in the next 2 decades. Fewer than 50 million Gen Xers will replace them. And by 2020, 50% of the workforce will be Gen Y. That means the population is getting older. What does that mean for you as an employee, as an employer, for the profession in general? How will the way we staff our firms and companies in the future change? We will explore these topics and others as we get into the broadcast. Ralph, let's take a deeper dive into some of these issues.
Thanks, Ellen, and good morning. And I want to extend my welcome to all of you, and particularly those attendees who were on our first broadcast. Certainly, the graying of America is going to be causing some unique challenges. One of the big things is about retirement. We're now in an environment where we have 4 generations in the workforce, and it used to be that individuals thought about retiring at age 65, but now we're finding that more and more people are working beyond 65. You have a chart that says the choice to retire. That's an interesting issue or a phenomenon that people are going to have to deal with. The chart suggests that only 23% of people thought that they could retire before age 65. When in reality, when actual retirees were interviewed, 69% actually retired before 65. So that's something unique. I think the other big issue is why that happened. And one of the things, we all think we have the ability to determine when we're going to retire. But look at some of the issues that forced people or took the choice out of their hands. Health problems or disability, care for a spouse or a family member, changes at companies, where companies have gone through some downsizing, closing, or consolidations. And then there are other work-related reasons. Outdated skills are many. And you look at ability or the ability to afford early retirement, 32%, and wanting to do something else. Clearly, the choice to retire is not now in people's hands. It's controlled by other factors. So today's workforce, more individuals are working past 65. They may not be able to choose when they're going to retire or be in control of it. So that's going to be a big issue for enterprise and the profession to address going forward. Last week we had a phenomenal convention down in Atlantic City at Bally's. And one of the topics, our keynote speaker who led off, Kelly Farron, a gerontologist, I think I pronounced that correctly, but And you say, what is a gerontologist? It's an individual that studies the knowledge of base of aging and also helps people to deal with aging and aging well. Well, I had an opportunity to interview Kelly, and I tell you, it was we had an interesting conversation. And I'd just like to share a little bit of a video clip from that interview.
We've never been down this path where we've seen these types of numbers as far as the 65 plus being the majority of the population, 65 plus population at work up 58% in the last 10 years. These are some very new trends, and I think, it's a very interesting question. Are they working because they want to, or are they working because they have to? I think it's both. I really do. I think it's both, yeah. I don't think 65 is what it used to be. And obviously we're working in a type of culture where we're not moving boulders, we're using our brains. We're in, a different type of work environment. So I think that's one of the things. And I think most of them feel 10, 15 years younger than their natural age.
I don't know about you, but those comments that Kelly supplied are real interesting, particularly the fact that we're in what she refers to as uncharted waters, or going down a road where we haven't been before, where those who are 65 will comprise the majority of the population. Certainly that presents some unique challenges, I think, for the enterprise. It also presents perhaps some opportunities too. I mean, the fact that the new 65, or we always would say the 50 is the new 40, the new 65 is the 65. People at 65 now feel 10 or 15 years younger, and therefore feel that they can perhaps work longer in the workplace. So I think Kelly has shared some things that are going to be real insightful. When we look at AICPA statistics, in 6 years, by 2020, we'll have 3 out of 4 AICPA members who will be 65 or older or approaching retirement age. And that we're going to see that also in the New Jersey Society of CPAs. So that's going to pose a unique challenge for us in the marketplace.
Absolutely right, Ralph. And we were very fortunate we had Kelly at the convention, and you just had the opportunity to see one question that Ralph and Kelly explored together. We actually have a full interview on our YouTube channel. Please turn in to learn a lot more information that Kelly. So we were so lucky to have her there and to really work with us on what we need to be thinking about as a society and a profession as we get grayer, right, Ralph?
Grayer, or some people refer to it as a silver tsunami. Whatever it is, it's going to be a challenging situation for us. And I think Kelly does a couple of things, not only talking about the change in the landscape, but also how people can change their lifestyles so that they can be prepared, if necessary, to work beyond 65, and some of the things that they can do. So when we talk about challenges for the enterprise, and it affects all companies, organizations, firms, sole practitioners, whether you're in private industry, nonprofit, or government, one of the key issues is succession planning. Given the fact that people are working beyond 65, what is the impact on the workforce? In particular, what's the impact on the younger generation that's coming up? In the statistics you quoted earlier, we have 78 million baby boomers who are going to be perhaps exiting the workforce over the next 2 decades. But we only have 50 million young people, or as we call them, Gen X, Gen Ys, that will be coming into the marketplace. So if you just do the math, there's going to be some sort of shortfall. And if we look back, let's just go back to 2000, when we were probably at our lowest enrollment in terms of accounting enrollments, and also individuals graduating in accounting. So when you roll that forward, those individuals who graduated in 1999, 2000 would be about 10 to 12 to 15 years into their careers. And so they would be the individuals that we would be looking for to fill those leadership opportunities that are going to occur with the 78 million baby boomers somehow exiting out of the workforce. But if we go back to Kelly, some of those folks are going to decide, I'm not ready to retire right now. So what does that impact do? I mean, how do you manage that when somebody wants to work past 65, into their 70s, and even into their 80s? I mean, in Kelly's presentation, she shared with us individuals who were working in their 90s. There was even one individual who was a centenarian, who was heading up a law practice. So I think these are all unique issues that folks in general in the business world will have to deal with. And I think in particular in the accounting profession, particularly amongst our firms and those in private industry. I guess the one thing I would challenge those who are on the broadcast to think about within your organizations, do you have a real succession plan that addresses this? Have you been having those conversations now about the changing demographics and the fact that maybe more of the staff is graying? And what are the implications? Who's going to backfill? What are the implications on young people? If you haven't had those conversations now, you really ought to start to have them, because it's going to be important that you plan for this. And it's going to come upon us, in fact, it's upon us in many instances right now. So I think one of the key things is, whether you're in private industry, public accounting, nonprofit, or government, succession planning is key. And I find too often when I visit with firms and members, they haven't done a good job at succession planning. So I think that's one thing that we're going to be trying to emphasize as well.
Ralph, what I see a lot of times, especially in public accounting, is the open and honest communication that people don't want to have. There's always a sensitive topic of when or do you anticipate retiring. The true conversation you have with the younger people of what do you expect from your career or within your career, and trying to bridge that gap of the retirees, of their true expectation from the true expectations of the younger people, what they want. And to compound the matter, then you also have the 4 generations, as you indicated earlier, of the different mindset of work-life balance, and that's putting a strain on the people and the expectations further. So.
Well, Brad, you're right on point, and again, I go back to Kelly, and she's saying we're in uncharted waters. This is new to everybody in the workplace, particularly the fact that we have 4 generations that are, all operating and differently. Each one of them has a different type of drum, and the beats are different, and that's going to be a challenge for companies and organizations in today's environment, how to deal with that, how to mesh and get those 4 generations to work together. And also underpinning this are the changing demographics that we're starting to see. And I mean the changing demographics in terms of the makeup of America. We talk about the graying of America. There's also a term out there saying the browning of America, where we are seeing minority groups groups that were referred to as underrepresented minorities growing at a faster rate than the majority group. And statistics show us that probably in 2, maybe 3 decades, there will not be the majority group anymore. It will gravitate towards being the minority group, right, because of the birth rate that's taking place in underrepresented minorities. And I think the other big aspect in the changing demographics that we're seeing is that we have more multicultural households, that minority-owned businesses now represent 21% of the nation's businesses and small businesses. So that's going to have an impact on the accounting and finance professions. The challenge is that our profession must now reflect the diversity found in business and society today.
We just recently, we also had the opportunity to go to AICPA Council a couple of weeks ago. And Barry Melanson, who is the chair of the AICPA, recently recommended that firms double down on diversity issues. Can you expand a little bit on this, Ralph?
Well, yeah, I think, in the past, diversity has been looked at as the right thing to do, the social thing to do, if you will. And I think now when we look at the changing demographics and the fact that underrepresented minority businesses are now growing at a faster rate, this now is a business imperative. And so I think that's what Barry meant by we need to double down on our diversity efforts to be able to address this, because if we don't, the profession will be out of alignment. We'll have minority businesses growing at a faster rate, and then those businesses are going to look to deal with and utilize service professionals who look like them, who share the same values. So I think that's what Barry was reflecting when he said that we needed to double down, and that we really needed to put a full court press on so that the profession would be properly positioned to deal with the changing demographics that we're seeing in today's marketplace.
And you also have the opportunity to serve on the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force that the profession is conducting. What are you seeing coming out of that task force?
Well, I think a couple things. We're looking to put together playbooks that will be a resource to firms and also to private industry. You'd be surprised at the number of organizations that haven't addressed the diversity issue. And then they're coming up and finding that, you know, when they go out to bid on work and RFPs, that people are saying, well, you know, you don't have a diverse staff. And statistics indicate that when you have a diverse culture and a diverse staff, that better results, better solutions come about. When you have diverse inputs into place, it can really improve the end product. So I think stay tuned for the resources that will be coming out from the Diversity and Inclusion Commission. They should be coming out probably early fall, maybe mid-fall, third quarter of this year. And I think they will be useful because what they will do is allow a company or organization to assess where they are in the diversity and the maturity model, if you will, whether they're at the beginning, whether they're in the middle, or whether they're at the top end. And then that will help them position them to what course they should chart in terms of enhancing their diversity efforts. I think the other thing it will deal with, it will give resources that firms can use and organizations can use to enhance the cultures that they work in, because it isn't just about diversity, it's diversity and inclusion. The ability to have an environment that people feel welcome to and engaged and that they feel a part of the organization. So I think these resources will help organizations and our members to really move down this path and have a measure of success. Again, when we look at the changing demographics, the growth in what we now refer to as underrepresented minorities is outpacing the majority group. And so we will see a dynamic change. And more importantly, with the growth in the small businesses that are owned and operated by minority groups, the entrepreneurial capital that's coming in also will be coming from those groups. So it's going to be a unique opportunity and an opportunity for our firms and also businesses out there and those who are in industry as well. Minority communities have a high gross disposable gross income, and that will be increasing. So some unique opportunities that are ahead of us, if we want.
You know, I was going to say, I would turn over to Brad, because you know you sit in a unique position. You're a partner in a prominent New Jersey firm. I'm sure you see it both from your client side and your staff side. What are some of the things that you, as a practitioner, are seeing right now?
What I'm seeing is, and something I took away from ISCPA Council too, is I'm seeing that the melting pot of the United States has truly melted together, and the business community is reflecting that. The problem is the accounting profession has to catch up, and with Barry's comments, the AICPA is making a concerted effort to bridge that cultural divide that has been there and to move forward. And we and many other firms I know within New Jersey are trying to make that effort, because we have large cultural populations within New Jersey, and in order to service those populations, you have to have that within your organization. Otherwise, you're potentially setting yourself up to fail or be mediocre.
Now, Brad, you know, one of the things that we're seeing today is that accounting enrollments are at an all-time high. Graduation rates of accounting graduates are also at an all-time high. But what about that middle management group? Are firms such as your firm, are you being challenged to find people in that middle tier group?
Sure, we're representative of many of the firms and many of the companies out there right now. Over the past 10 years, there was a shortage of hires, either due to lack of people going into the profession or due to lack of hiring because of the economy. And the result of that is that you have a shortage of managers, directors in the leadership positions, which will ultimately relate to a shortage of partners or CFOs, CEOs down the road. So while we're looking at and considering right now, we have to consider what the long-term effect could possibly be 5-10 years from now also.
So how do you address that issue? I mean, obviously we had a shortage 12 years ago of accounting enrollments and also graduates. How do you backfill that situation?
Well, hope that you don't have is people that feel that they have to stay on to continue to service the clients. You hope that you can continue to bring people up, train them properly, give them the leadership direction that is needed, and the attention and the encouragement. What we find that we're trying to do is retain the people as best possible, give them the environment that they want to be in, that they want to stay in, to be able to grow and flourish within the organization. When you start having people leave, it just compounds the issue more because there's not the pool to be able to go back to. So retaining them is one of our biggest focuses right now, and training them.
Well, you mentioned an interesting thing, retaining people, and one of the big things in today's environment is the whole notion of work-life balance, and it's particularly a issue or concern for the Gen X's and Gen Y's. You know, what are you doing in your firm to try to address work-life balance?
And it's funny, we keep using the phrase work-life balance, and you talk to the younger generation and they like to use the phrase life-work balance. So I guess
that's telling.
That shows our age, right? I try and lead by example, and a lot of people, my firm particularly, tries to lead by example. Everybody in my organization knows what was important to me over the years and has changed, you know, just my family structure. I afforded myself the opportunity to participate in all my family events because that's what was important to me. I've positioned myself in my career, and I told people you can position yourself in your career depending upon the organization. I told them public accounting, skiing might not be beneficial. If you go into industry and you're at a large public company and there's certain filings, you have to remember that you might not be able to go away during filing times, or you have family events during filing times. So there is a balance not only between work-life, life-work, but business and expectations. So really communication and discussion is extremely imperative. If everybody just keeps expecting things and not saying it, that's what puts a hindrance on the company.
Well, and you mentioned industry. I think a number of our attendees of today's broadcast are from the industry segment, and one of the big challenges is, you know, how do you make that work and happen in an industry setting? And I think we talked earlier about having those conversations, and I think conversations are starting to be had in the industry environment where they're talking about how you can do a better job of managing work-life balance. Focus groups that to encourage young people, and not just young people, but all employees to get involved in their communities and things that I think are becoming very, very important to individuals, but I think particularly in the industry segment there. So I want to just go back because this shortage, this acute shortage that we've been talking about, particularly for people who should be right now positioned to move into leadership. What does that mean now for the individuals who are currently in leadership? Do they now feel that, well, I can't leave because we don't have that supply coming into the marketplace? And then this also goes back to what we talked about from Kelly about people looking at working longer. What kind of implications are going to be had by organizations?
Well, I think the issues we're facing are really twofold, and it's difficult for accountants to put them together. We have the generational issues, which we have to keep facing, but we also have the technology issues that some generations refuse to accept and adopt and allow to get put in place effectively. And what I mean by that is you have the older leaders, the seasoned generation that is trying to lead in the same way that they've always led, and they've got to learn that there might be less people underneath them, or they may have to handle more, but there are easier ways to handle things via the use of technology. And if we start adopting more technology effectively, work telecommuting, things can get done just as effectively. Just because somebody leaves earlier for whatever reason doesn't mean that they're not home working, and we have to accept that. So things are getting done with either the same or less people sometimes because of technology, and we have to have some faith in look more at the productivity and the output rather than what's going in. That's what should be studied more going forward.
Yeah.
You know, also from your point of view, we talked a little bit about saying that the pipeline is very robust right now. people are coming in, firms are not having a problem hiring. What we're hearing from firms and companies is the challenge that these young people are not sitting for the exam. So we're not, once the exam became computerized in 2004, we've had somewhat of a drop-off of people taking the exam, and they're not taking it at the same ratio as the graduates. Are you finding that, and what are someone like you doing to compensate for that?
I see that completely. I mean, the amount of students going in and, the career fairs, the college events that I go to, the number of students, I've seen an increase over the past, you could say 10 years, but even over the past 5, 6 years, the amount of students at accounting clubs, career fairs has jumped up tremendously. We bring them in, and the transition to sitting for the exam and that mindset has changed tremendously. I know the New Jersey Society and other professionals really have to put a concerted effort into how are we going to get these people to remain focused on passing the exam. They have to see a benefit from it, and that has to be communicated. Now, we could sit and study why that has happened over the past 10 years. Some say it's the computerization, the ability to procrastinate. It's very common. When we took the exam, it was twice a year. You didn't take it, you missed it, you had another 6-month wait, and that wasn't fun. But now they have the ability to push off, and I'm not going to put the blame on the younger people. A lot of times it's the leaders that say to them, okay, you don't have to take it right now because we have something that has to get done.
Exactly.
So the people, the candidates have to see the importance of it, and that has to come from originally from their professors, from the leaders within their organization, and possibly even from family member and friends. They have to emphasize the importance of it.
Well, I think one of the things, I throw one more element in there, and I think that the society has a real big role in that, to encourage candidates or recent graduates to take the exam right away. Because I can share my experience when I came out of school. You had to wait a year or two before you could even sit for the exam. And by that time, I was working, a number of hours and whatnot, and it was just difficult to manage studying and working for the exam. So I know we've got some resources that we're devoting towards that with our cram blog, also in our visits that we make to colleges and universities, to talk about the importance of taking the exam right away, because it is an academic exercise. We also run a number of help sessions for our student members so that they can get an understanding of what's changing about the exam and some of the unique tips that you should be aware of when taking the exam. I'm sure, I tell you, I wouldn't want to take the exam again today in this environment because I'm used to the blue books. and now that it's an electronic exam, it's definitely a new era. But I think that's one way that the society can play an important role, and is starting to do that by encouraging individuals who are graduating from college. Don't go on hiatus or go away on a vacation and then wait to take the exam when you're working. I think also we're studying in our scholarship fund about the possibility of providing some assistance to individuals, because we've heard of concerns about the economic impact. It certainly costs a lot more today to take the exam than it did when we sat. And so I think that's a challenge too as well. So I think there are a lot of things that we can do, and certainly I encourage, if we have any folks from the academic environment, please encourage your students to sit for the exam right away. That's the best way. There's a lot of flexibility now in doing that. So.
And lastly, industry people can focus on encouraging people to sit for the exam by, when you're looking for candidates for hire, is to set that as one of the criteria, because that does bring a skill set, and it does bring a level of commitment that comes along with it. So.
Brett, let's talk a little bit about the shortage globally. What are you seeing, not just here in Jersey, but globally? And are you looking to hire people from overseas or transfer people overseas? How is that working for you?
Well, with the need for skilled talent within the United States, either we have to put an effort forward to develop them ourselves or bring them in. We see that, and the difficulty, though, that we see is the method of bringing them in, or the requirements for bringing them in. we see that because we're dealing a lot now with entities, our clients, or I know if you're in industry, you're dealing with foreign entities, and you can use very effectively somebody with from being brought in because they have the language to assist you, et cetera. But going back to my comment of the barriers is the governmental requirements that are placed upon companies. Where we're a medium-sized accounting firm in New Jersey, to be able to handle those legal requirements is very, very onerous. Some of the larger firms and some of the larger companies can do it. But if you take a smaller company in the industry, for them to bring somebody in that might fit a skill set that they need, it can be very difficult. And I hate to cast a cloud over this, but I know that the AICPA is trying to work on the H-1B visas. Hopefully we can get some movement towards easing some of the requirements and paperwork, and if you can't retain the person, the penalties that we have to face.
Well, I can speak to that directly. We actually hired recently a young man from Canada who had a very unique technology skill that we needed here. And I was really coordinating that whole process, and I got to tell you, it was very stressful. Dealing with immigration and immigration attorneys, it worked, but it was a 6-month process. And we have to do periodic compliance just to make sure everything that we're in compliance with, obviously not a U.S. citizen, and getting Social Security numbers and driver's license, a lot of stuff that we take for granted.
Well, unfortunately for you, Alan, I hate to say I'm glad that you went through it, because as we talked recently, it's good that you have that experience, because now when you're dealing with 15,000 members and somebody's complaining about something, you know what their pain is. And it was a 6-month process. You weren't looking for an executive level position.
Exactly.
That you know of, Ralph. And can you imagine a smaller company having to deal or trying to put through a 6-month process? I'm talking in industry even. If they have a need, they would like to fill that, not immediately, not the next day, but within a month. They don't have a 6-month time frame to try and work with that. Right. So now what we're facing and the ISCPA is facing is, how can we help the members? How can we help industries, companies to try and get through this process or make it easier?
Well, go ahead, Al, I'm sorry.
We've talked about the graying, we've talked about diversity. One thing we didn't touch upon really is gender. Right now, colleges are graduating about 60% women, 40% male in accounting. What are you seeing as the impact on that? Either one of you, in terms of the profession, the firm, maybe Brad, in terms of the firms?
I hate to go back to the old topic we discussed a few minutes ago, but part of it is a generational issue, is how are we going to accept certain work-life balances, because women and sometimes husbands or men have some issues that they're working with, and they want to have certain aspects, part-time, have flexibility, thank you, and we have to start accepting that. We've seen, unfortunately for us, we have a partner within our organization, a woman partner within our organization, who has shown us that she has to leave a lot of times to go help her kids for school, for dance lessons, but what she does a lot of times is goes back home and does work, because she knows she has client responsibilities. And that kind of opened our eyes to us that it can be done. And I remember talking with a lot of, excuse me, partners, I know I'm talking about public accounting, and they say, well, how are we going to compensate a part-time partner? And I say, we're accountants if we can't figure that out. I know if a client said to us, we have a part-time owner and we want to know how to compensate them, we would figure out how to do that. And what we have to do as an industry now is start figuring out how to address the situation, rather than keep pushing it away and say, oh, it'll figure itself out, because the rate of women leaving the profession is almost alarming, especially when they're 60% of the graduates, because that's going to put the strain back again on the profession 10 years from now and say, we don't have enough people now because women left the profession.
And I think it's important for the women, too, to have a good network of women that they can talk to. It could be peer, it could be leader peer. I know we've had a lot of requests coming from our women members to do things. So 2 years ago, we opened up the women's conference. So 2 years running now, we've had a women's conference. They absolutely love it. We built in networking afterwards, a nice cocktail reception following, where they can actually have met people who they've never known before. I know that friendships have been forged because of this. And we also have what's called the Breakfast Club. It's in, we hold it in Springfield, New Jersey, quarterly, and we're hoping to expand that throughout the state, various locations. Now, the interesting thing about the Breakfast Club, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Brad, or not, there is no technical topic whatsoever. It's just women coming together for breakfast, just to chat, exchange business cards, do business with each other. It's worked really well.
That's great. One of the benefits of our convention is that you talk to members, and I was talking with one of our members, a female, who told me that she joined the firm, and it's predominantly women that are coming back. And I talked with a partner who handled the firm, and I said to her, I really need to get together with you to find out how you're doing it, what effort you're making, because this is important. And she gave me one little insight, and she just said 3 letters, PTA. And I said, okay, because sometimes the difficulty of finding the people to come back to the workforce. And she said that, so one of my efforts that I'm going to is make sure I meet with that member and talk with them, of course, for myself, but also to help work with the society of making this, something that we move forward to. Maybe not this year, but it should be part of our strategic considerations.
Good.
Clearly, that's a big issue that we need to address on the female aspect. And I think the program that we're running provides a great opportunity for us to address that, and getting that group together to have the conversations. And I think also to create support mechanisms, because I think that's one of the big issues.
That's key, Ralph.
That's key out there, is having a support group, and as part of this inclusive aspect of the diversity and inclusion initiative, it's important to have a very inclusive point.
Well, I think we've had some great conversation on human capital. So we promised you we would cover some of what's going on in New Jersey in the legislative and regulatory environment. And sitting to my right is our guru.
I don't know, I agree. I wish I had a crystal ball to see how we could get out of some of the things that we're in. But certainly, kudos to the administration for not, bowing or kowtowing to increasing taxes. That's just not something that New Jersey needs at this particular point in time. However, one of the things that has surfaced is the fact that we have a budget shortfall because of collections, and it's the new number is 1.2 billion. And what's concerning about that is, we have to close that gap, and one of the ways that it's going to probably be addressed is through cutting down or slashing the pension contribution. But more importantly, the challenge that this puts on us is the impact on future discretionary spending. And discretionary spending is necessary to bring and attract new businesses here in New Jersey. We've had balanced budgets, or attempted at balancing the budget, but the amount of discretionary spending that's been included in recent budgets has been very, very small. And so the impact there is that programs to attract new companies into the marketplace are not there, not as robust when we look at our border states and some of the initiatives that they're doing out there to attract people to come to their states. We've got to do something to become more competitive. And so certainly we're going to be looking very closely at what the administration is going to do to try to address the budget shortfall. The other thing that impacts when the situation is the state's debt rating, and so that's been impacted. Fitch and all the rating agencies have put sort of a negative outlook out there because of this issue. So the credit rating downgrades are going to be impactful too, because businesses, when they are looking for a place to either relocate or to expand operations, credit rating of the state is important, as well as the skilled labor force, tax policies and things of that nature. So we really, really have to take a look at that and that. So that's going to be a big thing. We're going to be waiting with bated breath about the budget process. A big thing that we've also got to address is the fact that several years ago, over a 5-year period, $70 billion of net worth left the state from I think it's from 2004 to 2008. And these were individuals who had, one, the ability to leave the state. Two, they were individuals who, for the most part, had small businesses and employed people here. And when given that we're in an age where we're not building widgets and things like that, where we're providing services, they have that ability to take those businesses out of the state. So I think the concern going forward is, will we see another situation like that where we'll have an exodus of people because of the current climate that we see here. Now, we're trying to work to make some changes there. We're working with the administration. We're working with other business groups, because one of the big issues that has been put on the table is the estate and inheritance tax here in New Jersey. For all of our members, you know, New Jersey is a gross income tax state, so it has a tremendous impact on people's tax position here. And so we're working, and when one of our key legislators, Senator Orho, who's an inactive CPA but has worked in both private industry and in public accounting, has put forth a bill to address the inheritance and estate tax. And so we're going to be looking and working with him and trying to pull our other business alliance groups together to try to address that issue, because that's one of the things I hear and I think everybody talks about. And sort of the strategy that a lot of our members offer to their clients is that you don't want to die in New Jersey because of our policy on that. So I think we've got to do some things there. So stay tuned to what with the passage of the budget, and stay tuned to our efforts in working with other business groups. I think now, Brad.
Ralph, one thing, I remember we were attending a presentation by the state treasurer, who said the political hot potato is always the estate tax. But if we stop looking at it as that big payment and look at it the annuity instead of the income tax that we could be losing by people leaving the state, businesses leaving the state, and stop focusing on that one big payment when somebody passes away, we'll be much better off.
Yeah, I think one good thing is the conversation has started to emanate from lawmakers and regulators. And so that's sort of a different change. So I think maybe the time is right to really have some serious conversations on that. I think also we want to, Brad, I know you're a big A&A guy, so there's some hot topics out there for A&A. So why don't you take it away and talk about some of the things that are floating around in the landscape?
Sure. The most significant change that we see right now, although you could think it's just public, but it's really not, affects industry also, is the changes to the peer review model. The AICPA is reviewing significant changes to the peer review model. It is a long-term project. They want to create a model that reflects more of a continuous, a real-time monitoring than every 3 years. They're also looking at the quality of the peer reviewers, considering some sort of test or some sort of competency program to make sure that peer reviewers are adequate. And people in industry should always focus on who's peer reviewing their auditor. Because it does have an influence.
And not only who's reviewing it, what were the results of the peer review?
Absolutely.
And thank you very much, Brad.
And I think that's important, because the current model for peer review is that you have to have a peer review once every 3 years, and so much can happen in terms of a firm's audit quality and what it's delivering to the marketplace, and that we're very focused on the protection of the public as part of our mission statement as a society. So we're going to be very interested to see what happens with peer review and whether this new model can actually come to fruition, where there's more real-time assessment of firms' work product.
That's one of the more technical issues. There are other technical accounting tax issues that people should consider that have been coming out. But the other significant change in the landscape is the CPE. The state did come out with a proposal to remove the limit on self-study, and unfortunately I think that might be a little early of a consideration, because NASBA, along with the AICPA, is considering compliance, the competency factors of CPE rather than compliance. So they want to stop looking at the old 120, do I have 120, and instead of that, what do I have? Was it critical to the type of work I do? Was it enhancing my competencies rather than did I just satisfy 120 hours?
Yeah, clearly competency is a big push in today's environment because of the changing landscape in the accounting profession and the complexity actually that exists.
And Nez was very active with this, and for some of the seasoned professionals, including myself, I'm starting to consider myself older now. You're going to start hearing phrases like microbytes and nano credits. And what that means is right now you have to sit through 50 minutes to get an hour. In New Jersey, you at least have to sit through the first 50 minutes. I won't bore you with the details. But they're going to be getting more towards snippets, 15, 20-minute type of videos or training, so long as it's adding to your competency.
Yeah.
And we're actually very lucky. Jim Hardenberg, who's our Chief Learning Officer, is serving on this NASBA task force.
Right.
So we're right on that pulse. We get to hear what's happening right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And it's going to be a process, let's face it. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are going to see changes in the way we deliver and account for CPE going forward.
I was fortunate to become part of the AICPA Council, and I will say that the AICPA does not look at these things as a knee-jerk reaction. The peer review process, the CPE process, they envision that this is a project. This is not a process. This is not a quick snap of the finger change. These are projects that they admitted will take years, and I'm happy to hear that because there will be a lot of thought put into it then.
Yeah. Well, we do have a couple of questions, and I think this first one is for Brad. What, if anything, should CPAs do to prepare for the new revenue recognition standards put out by FASB and IASB, Brad? I think you're qualified.
This pronouncement has been bantered back and forth for at least 4 years now. And the FASB and the IASB has finally come to a near conclusion as to where, or pretty much conclusion as to where it's headed. There's a lot of literature that's coming out now about it. Watch the Journal of Accountancy. There will be seminars. I know the society is gearing to put up seminars that you should be attending. But in short, the changes will be affecting certain industries significantly, but others like computer programming companies won't see a significant change except for the disclosure. Okay. But there is literature that's out in periodicals, and I strongly encourage people to read on.
Okay. Another question, are CPA firms required to give peer review results to audit clients?
They're not required to, but generally, especially if they're a member of if the firm is a member of the AICPA, this information is available online. Now, if you're withholding the information, then that relationship, you may want to question that. But if I had to think back as to the state board rules, I don't think you're required to provide that information. But if you're withholding it, the client is going to start questioning why you're withholding that information. So,
yeah, and I would think audit committees that would be one of the things that they would ask for as they look at auditors, and as they look at even renewing the relationship with their existing auditors to check what's happening with them from a peer review standpoint.
Certain nonprofit companies, certain auditors of certain nonprofits are required to have a peer review over a certain amount of time, and those nonprofit companies, if we have any participants that are on nonprofit boards, should actively review the peer review of their auditor.
It's just good practice.
Okay, so the next question I think really is for Ralph. When can we expect to see changes to New Jersey's reciprocity process?
Well, the bill was passed, and the effective date is August 1st. So we should be seeing those changes and what's taking place there. I know we are actively working with the State Board of Accountancy because the changes to reciprocity not only affect our members, CPAs, but all licensed professions here in the state of New Jersey. So there are 33, 35 licensed professions that have reciprocity rules that are going to be impacted. I think the other thing that's important too, and particularly for some of our members who are in industry, if they have unfortunately let their license lapse after 5 years, the current requirement is that you have to sit for the exam again, as we discussed. It's a tough exam now, and I don't think anybody would want to do that. Well, part of what this new law, the change in the law did, was eliminate the need to retest. And so the individual boards, i.e. the State Board of Accounting, will now prescribe what an individual needs to do who has let his or her license lapse.
All right, well, I thank you for joining us today, joining Ralph and Brad, and look forward to seeing you on our next Issues Watch.
Well, Brad, thank you, and Ellen, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a great conversation, and hopefully, if members have questions, they'll continue to send them in, and we'll answer them through a blog or through our Connect system.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. And I know if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to anybody at the New Jersey Society. They're more than willing to help you. And if I can help you in any way, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.